Your trauma doesn't own you, but your healing does. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French, and I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I want to share something that has the power to change the trajectory of your life. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Charlett Swaner-Smith, a woman whose entire life's work is centered on helping people move from survival mode into true healing and wholeness. Charlett is not just a voice in the wilderness. She is a force, a truth teller, a liberator who refuses to let people stay stuck in their pain when freedom is sitting right there, waiting for them to reach out and grab it. Her insights have shaped communities, transformed countless lives, and reminded people all over the world that while trauma is real, so is their power to heal. And what she shared with me, I'm about to share with you because the world needs to hear this. Here's the truth we need to start with, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You can overcome anything, but only when you take radical responsibility for your own happiness. Let me say that again slowly because I need you to hear every single word. You can overcome anything, but only when you take radical responsibility for your own happiness. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. LeAnne, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know what they did to me. You don't know how deep this pain goes. You don't know how many nights I've cried myself to sleep. You don't know how many times I've tried to get better and failed. And you're right, I don't know your specific story. But here's what I do know: life will give you real pain, real trauma, and real injustice. That part is not up for debate. What happened to you was real. The betrayal was real. The loss was real. The abuse was real. The neglect was real. The abandonment was real. I'm not here to minimize any of that. I'm not here to tell you to get over it or to just think positive thoughts and everything will magically be fine. But here's where we have to get brutally honest with ourselves. Staying stuck in victim mode will keep you from healing. And I'm not saying that to be harsh or to dismiss your pain. I'm saying it because I care about your freedom more than I care about being comfortable. Choosing happiness isn't pretending everything is fine. It's not toxic positivity. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not slapping a smile on your face while you're bleeding internally. Choosing happiness is deciding that your joy matters enough to do the work. It's deciding that you are worth the effort it takes to heal. It's deciding that the people who hurt you don't get to keep hurting you by living rent free in your mind, your choices, and your future. Charlett Swaner-Smith reminded me of something during our conversation that I want to pass on to you. She said that so many of us are walking around with unhealed wounds, making decisions from a place of pain, and then wondering why our lives keep reflecting that pain back to us. We're choosing partners who mirror our trauma. We're staying in jobs that drain us because we don't believe we deserve better. We're saying yes when we mean no because we're terrified of being abandoned or rejected. And all of that, that's trauma brain. That's your nervous system running the show instead of your healed, whole, powerful self. Which brings me to the second thing Charlotte and I talked about. Depression and trauma are real, and so is trauma brain. But healing starts with acknowledgement, support, and accountability. Let's talk about Taraji P. Henson for a moment. You know her. Award winning actress, powerful, successful, beautiful, the kind of woman who looks like she has it all together. Cookie Lyon, Katherine Johnson in Hidden Figures. A woman who has graced red carpets, accepted awards, and smiled for cameras while carrying a weight most people couldn't even imagine. And yet, Taraji reached a point where she didn't want to be here anymore. She experienced suicidal ideation at the height of her career. She struggled with depression and anxiety while carrying the weight of being a public figure, a single Black mother, and a woman expected to be strong all the time. She lost her child's father to violence. She lost her beloved father. She carried compounded trauma and grief. And for years, she tried to power through because that's what she thought a strong Black woman should do. Eventually, she hit an emotional breaking point where she recognized she was not okay. And here's what Taraji did: she didn't pretend she was fine, she didn't keep grinding. She made the decision to start therapy. She openly acknowledged that she needed professional help. And then she went a step further. She founded the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, named after her father, to address mental health stigma in the Black community and increase access to culturally competent therapy. She used her pain as a platform. She turned her breaking point into a turning point. She stood on stages, sat in interviews, and said out loud, "I was depressed. I thought about ending my life, and I got help." Taraji's story illustrates something Charlett emphasized in our interview. Your brain and body remember what you've been through. You're not weak. You're not crazy. You're not broken beyond repair, but you do have power. Getting diagnosed, going to therapy, setting boundaries, changing habits, these are all acts of accountability to yourself. These are all ways of saying, I matter. My healing matters. My peace matters. And I need you to hear this. Therapy is not a luxury, it's not something you do when you have extra time or extra money. It's a necessity, it's oxygen, it's the difference between surviving and thriving. And if you're sitting there thinking, I can't afford therapy, I want you to know there are low cost options, community mental health centers, sliding scale therapists, and online platforms that can help. The barrier is not as insurmountable as it feels. What's really stopping most of us is the shame, the belief that asking for help means we failed, the fear that if we open up about what we're really going through, people will see us as less than. But let me tell you something. Taraji opened up about her depression, and thousands of Black people felt seen. They felt validated. They felt permission to get help. When she admitted she wasn't okay, she gave other people permission to stop pretending too. Through her foundation, she's funded therapy scholarships and provided thousands of free or discounted sessions for Black people. She's helped shift the public conversation. When Taraji admits to depression, it gives other Black professionals and entrepreneurs permission to get help instead of silently breaking down. Now, let's talk about Iyanla Van Zant. If you don't know Iyanla's story, let me give you the version that will shake you. She survived childhood sexual abuse. She entered abusive relationships as an adult. She lived in a car with her young children. She carried deep trauma, anger, shame, and patterns of unhealthy relationships. Classic trauma brain. Raised in a chaotic environment, she once accepted pain and dysfunction as normal. And later in life, even after becoming successful, she faced public and financial setbacks, including losing a show and going through bankruptcy. But here's what Iyanla did: she sought spiritual and psychological healing. She studied metaphysics and traditional spiritual practices. She did deep internal work on her own patterns. And she became uncompromising about accountability. She teaches that while you may not be responsible for what happened to you, you are responsible for what you do next. She centered forgiveness as a tool for personal freedom, emphasizing that forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for the person who hurt you. And that's the third thing Charlotte and I talked about. Forgiveness is for you, and accountability is non negotiable, even when your pain came from other people. Let me be clear: forgiveness does not mean forgetting, it does not mean excusing, it does not mean reconciling. It means cutting the emotional cord that keeps you bound to what hurts you. It means deciding that you are no longer going to let what they did control your present and your future. It means releasing the weight so you can walk lighter. But here's the other side of that coin. You must own the choices you can control, who you keep around, how you cope, how long you stay in harmful patterns. You have to stop giving your power away by blaming everyone else for where you are. Yes, they hurt you. Yes, it was wrong. Yes, you deserved better. And also, you are the only one who can choose differently moving forward. Iyanla transformed her life from survival mode to leadership. She became a best selling author, a TV host, a counselor known for her direct, compassionate style. Her books and shows like Iyanla, Fix My Life, help millions confront their own trauma stories, stop blaming everyone else, and take ownership of their choices. She embodies the idea that you can overcome anything when you combine compassion with accountability. She's built a global platform centered on the idea that your past doesn't excuse your present choices. You can choose differently. And then there's Tarana Burke, the founder of the Me Too movement. A survivor of sexual assault herself, for years Tarana navigated trauma brain, hypervigilance, emotional numbing, self doubt, while trying to function and lead in her community. As a young Black girl, she lacked language and support for what she'd been through, internalizing the belief that something was wrong with her. But instead of staying trapped in victimhood, Tarana chose to build an entire movement around the phrase Me Too. She turned personal pain into shared power. She began doing youth work in the 1990s and early 2000s, creating safe space for Black and Brown girls to share their stories and be believed. She coined Me Too in 2006 as a phrase of empathy and solidarity, focused on healing and empowerment, not just exposure of abusers. When Me Too went viral globally, Tarana used the spotlight to center survivors' healing, not just headlines. She pushed for resources, accountability, and structural change. Her work has helped millions of survivors move from silent suffering and internalized blame to solidarity, healing, and action. She co authored the memoir Unbound, documenting her healing and the birth of the movement. She helped shift global conversations on sexual violence, moving from secrecy and stigma toward survivor centered healing and accountability. Tarana's journey demonstrates that forgiveness and healing are for the survivor, and that refusing to be defined solely by trauma is a radical act of self preservation and leadership. She models taking accountability for what you can control, your voice, your boundaries, your advocacy, while insisting that systems and perpetrators also be held accountable. So here's what I need you to understand. These three women, Taraji, Iyanla, and Tarana, all had every reason to stay stuck. They all had every reason to say, the world did this to me and I'm done. But they didn't. They chose themselves. They chose healing. They chose accountability. And they chose to turn their pain into purpose. And that's what Charlett Swaner-Smith is calling you to do. Not because your pain doesn't matter, but because your healing matters more. You honor the reality of your trauma. You tell the truth about your choices and you choose yourself over and over again. Now, I want to be clear about something. This is not about perfection. This is not about having it all figured out. This is about movement. This is about taking one radical act of accountability for your own happiness within the next 24 hours. Maybe that means you schedule a therapy or counseling consultation. Maybe you look up low cost or community mental health options. Maybe you set or communicate one clear boundary with someone who drains you. Maybe you end one self sabotaging habit, is costing you your peace, doom scrolling, going back to a toxic ex, overworking with no rest. Maybe you write down three ways trauma is still driving your decisions and one concrete step you'll take to address each. The goal is not perfection. The goal is movement, one courageous choice in the direction of your healing. Because here's what I want you to feel right now. I want you to feel seen and validated in the reality of your depression, your trauma, your hard experiences. No gaslighting, no minimizing. What you've been through is real. And I also want you to feel called out and called up, lovingly confronted about where you're still choosing victimhood, but also reminded of your power. I want you to feel hopeful, but not delusional. Clear that healing is work and you are capable of doing that work. I want you to feel empowered and responsible, aware that happiness is not handed to you. It's something you build through choices, boundaries, and healing. By the end of this, I want you to say, my pain is real, but so is my power, and I'm done living like I'm powerless. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting for someone to apologize. Stop waiting for the pain to magically disappear. It won't, not on its own. Healing requires you to show up. It requires you to do the work. It requires you to choose yourself even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one else understands. Your trauma doesn't own you, but your healing does. And the world is waiting for the whole, healed, powerful version of you to show up and take up space. So take a breath, feel your power, and choose yourself today, right now in this moment, because you are worth it. And your freedom is on the other side of that choice.